This morning we are joined by Marco Adaggi, who is the MD of VW Financial Services. As part of our series on integrated thinking, Marco has agreed to share his views on the concept with us. Good morning and welcome, Marco.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, so let's get started. So the first question is, how do you define or understand integrated thinking as it applies to your company?
Well, you see, if I take a look at how I interpret integrated thinking, I think it is a much broader spectrum to understanding business, understanding the multifacets of one's business, but also understanding that there are numerous stakeholders who use the information to make day-to-day decisions, short-term, long-term decisions, and so forth. I think being part of a multinational business like Volkswagen Financial Services, there's generally a number of stakeholders who need information. And I've always thought it's quite important that you almost have one version of the truth so that everyone can leverage off a single understanding and not necessarily have only a bias towards a financial viewpoint or a performance-related viewpoint.
So then could you describe how your approach is within the company to embed integrated thinking? So maybe, from a strategy, risk management, all the different facets that make this concept up?
So firstly, I'll start off with allowing everyone to have a voice at the table. I think, everyone comes on board is a subject matter expert in their own field. And it's about allowing people to think and speak freely. I then think there's almost a rationalization process in which one needs to understand how do the various facets actually impact the business, impact your business operating model, and what drives the business forward. And I suppose it's also about making a distinction between what's a temporary impact and what's a permanent impact, and then understanding what is it that people need to know in order to understand the potential successes and failures of future decisions.
Oh, thank you. Then leading on from that, what is your view on how integrated thinking supports or does not support value creation? So I guess one step back is your understanding of value creation and from whose perspective value is being created for.
So, if I take a look, I think for me, it's quite important when one looks at value creation, because at the end of the day, I think businesses are there to create sustainability, profits, support products in various ways. So I think there has to be, firstly, that collective understanding. And then you need to understand how the resources or your capital actually gets used, and capital being broader than just the funding aspects of it. And then the reality for me is that it needs to ultimately always be able to be measured. And you have to almost associate an action to it. So for me, when one takes a look at it, the integrated thinking should always support strong decision making, which then should always land up creating value. So it's almost is that value is an outcome of all your collective understanding, behavior, and actions.
You've already alluded to everybody having a seat at the table. So how do you view your stakeholder engagement in relation to integrated thinking or value creation?
I suppose, if one takes a look in our particular business, I think there are a number of parties, as I mentioned, who need to get information and use that information to make decisions. I think there's a couple of things. I think one needs to understand their target market, and who that stakeholder is, and what they need out of that information. And then again, it goes back to my point about almost having that one one point or one version of the truth. I just think, as custodians of finance, I suppose, you are the touch points for a number of different stakeholders in the organization. And I think, you need to actually be in a position to talk their language. And then be able to translate how your actions, again, results in an outcome that should support the direction that the business is moving in.
So from a company perspective, which roles or functions do you believe are enablers of integrated thinking, value creation? And is it different because you're a multinational? Are there more challenges?
So I think firstly, it depends on the type of business. I mean, we're a financial services business. So, I mean, we've got certain disciplines that will always be of importance. If I had to break them down, I think the key drivers for me is obviously RT. Technology plays quite an important role. So you need to understand your technological landscape and how it evolves, and that particular one evolves actually quite quickly. You'll always have risk, which then incorporates obviously the credit side. Since we are lending, we'll always have a pillar where we have to be a responsible lender, but at the same time understand how the macro and microeconomic factors actually impact a person's ability to service a loan. The legal side obviously takes into account a lot of the regulations that comes in. And then ultimately, HR plays a part because you need the right people to do the right job. So again, I do think everyone has a say, but you do, just by the natural way business is set up and depending on the industry you're in, you are going to have certain stakeholders that carry a heavier weighting in decision making than others. But I do think everyone is important, and you got to understand how it all actually comes together.
Finally, last question. Do you think integrated thinking is reflected in corporate reporting or integrated reports?
I do. I think we're getting better at it. I don't think we quite yet perfect. The challenge for me whenever one takes a look at any of the financials or the integrated report and so forth, you almost tell the story in pockets, and the pockets don't always join up. And everyone has different pockets. So some pockets are bigger than others. It depends where you want to put the focus. And I know it's not very prescriptive as to where you have to focus on. But I think if we could get to some sort of utopia, it would be being able to tell a story about the past, the present, and the future. So, your past actions will inform your current situation. And your current actions will then inform your future outcomes. So the thing is, we tend to still think in silos and try to target specific stakeholders, opposed to saying, listen, let's talk it in a more generic term so that people can understand the flow. So I suppose the long and the short of it, yes, I've definitely seen a progression towards better integrated reporting. I still think we've got a bit of a way to go.
Excellent. This has been really insightful, Marco. Thank you so much. We do appreciate your time this morning with us. Thank you.
No, thanks, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. Ciao.